Welcome to Roll for Geekiness. I'm Jonathan, and welcome to the first episode of our new series, the Deck Brewers Cauldron, where members of our team will talk about some of their favorite Magic the Gathering decks and the cards and combos that make them tick. Today, I will be talking about Zaxara the Exemplary, who is the commander of one of my favorite and longest running commander decks. Now, I don't tend to build super competitive decks, but I have tuned this one a fair bit over the years. Let's take a quick look at the card. Zaxara the Exemplary costs 1 generic, 1 black, a green, and a blue for a legendary 2/3 Nightmare Hydra with Death Touch. Zaxara has a mana ability that taps for 2 mana of any one color and a triggered ability that says, whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token, then put X +1/+1 counters on it. So the obvious, Zaxara is a Hydra and makes more Hydras anytime you cast an X cost spell, which includes many Hydras. So my deck is certainly a Hydra Kindred deck. About half of the time that I cast a Hydra, I get a bonus Hydra. But I also love the payoff of getting a Hydra for casting other X cost spells. So I include many of those in my deck to do other things that promote the deck's overall strategy. Some shoutouts are certainly Diabolic Revelation, Death Denied, and Wildest Dreams, all of which can help me retrieve key pieces of this deck. Now, Hydras, by their very nature, are creatures that are defined by +1 counters. So this deck includes a lot of proliferate effects and other counter modifiers like Hardened Scales, Primal Vigor, and Branching Evolution to make my creatures even bigger. Now, when your deck has all these no-limit X cost spells, you want ways to generate a lot of mana for a big payoff. So this is a big mana deck. For that, I run a bunch of these storage lands that either just keep accumulating mana when you leave them tapped during your untap phase, or that you can tap to add more counters to. Then I also put in a bunch of effects that will let me untap those when I need them. I also run a couple effects that will keep me from ever losing unspent mana, like Horizon Stone and Crufix, God of Horizons, so I can just keep dumping mana in the pool. I also really love counterspells like Mana Drain and Plasm Capture in this deck because they also add to my mana pool. Now, I would be remiss here if I did not mention one of the infinite combos that you can create with Zaxara, Freed from the Real. When this aura is placed on Zax, it can essentially tap for however much mana I want. You tap for 2 blue, use one of those to untap Zax, tap for 2 of any color, use the last floating blue to untap Zax, tap for 2 blue, etc., etc., etc. So how does this deck win? Like I mentioned, it likes to make a lot of big creatures. But those can only win me the game if I've got ways to actually push through the immense amount of damage that they can cause. To that end, I have a few pieces that give all of my creatures trample, like Garruk's Uprising and Overwhelming Stampede. A number of pieces that will tap or just outright remove opposing creatures, such as Gridlock and Icy Blast, or Spinning Wheel Kick and Wave Goodbye. And a few pieces that will just straight up make my own creatures unblockable, like Herald of Secret Streams, Open into Wonder, and Profane Command. If a combat strategy isn't going to work against my opponents, Simic Ascendancy can just accidentally win me the game, or I can cast a very large Exsanguinate to close things out. Usually I'm going for that combat win because big stompy creatures are fun, and there's a lot more things in this deck that enable that type of gameplay strategy. But it is useful to have those other options in the deck, and a piece like Simic Ascendancy practically forces your opponents to respond to it, drawing attention away from other pieces on your board. Feel free to check out my full deck list on Archidekt, link in the description below. What you'll often find when you look at my deck lists on Archidekt is not only the complete list of cards in the deck, often categorized with multiple categories so you can see what roles they're fulfilling, but also a list of cards that I have cut from the deck, a maybe board of cards that I'm considering for the deck, and a wish list of cards that I would like to add to the deck, along with a post at the top of the comments about what cards those wish list cards will replace. That wish list helps me keep track of cards I'm looking to acquire. The maybe board is cards that I might want to keep in mind and think if there's a way to put them into the deck at some point in the future. And that cut list actually helps me keep track of cards that were either in the deck at one point and I've taken out, or cards that I have but couldn't find something that they were better than. I keep track of those in case that I find a card in the deck isn't meeting my expectations and I want to look for something to replace it with. You might look at any or all of those lists as alternate cards to consider for your Zaxara the Exemplary deck. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What cards or combos did I miss? Or what are your favorite stories about our friend Zax? See you in the next one.